So today we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 31. Text number 31 was missed on yesterday. So Krishna Kirtan has asked me to speak on text 31. I can see text 33 is on the board. So in the spirit of chanting for purification, we'll chant text number 33 together, and then we'll go back and we'll read and discuss text 31. So, text 33. Viduro pyudavachchutva Krishnasya paramatmanaha Kridayo patta dehasya Karmani shlaghitani cha Viduro pyudavachchutva Krishnasya paramatmanaha Kridayo patta dehasya Karmani shlaghitani cha Vidura Api also Uddhavat from the source of Uddhava Shrutva having heard Krishnasya of Lord Krishna Parama Atmanaha of the Supersoul Kridaya for the sake of pastimes in the mortal world Upata extraordinarily accepted Dehasya of the body Karmani transcendental activities Shlagitani most glorious Cha also. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the Supersoul, in the mortal world, which is a subject matter sought after with great perseverance by the great sages. So text 31. Nodhavo vapi manyuno yadgunar narditha prabhu ato madvayunam lokam grahayan ihatishtatu. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way because he is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he may remain in this world in order to disseminate specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Please repeat. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way. Because he is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he may remain in this world in order to disseminate specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The specific qualification for becoming the representative of the Lord is to be unaffected by the material modes of nature. The highest qualification of a person in the material world, is to be a Brahmana. The highest qualification of a person in the material world is to be a Brahmana. But since a Brahmana is in the mode of goodness, to be a Brahmana is not sufficient for becoming a representative of the Lord. One has to transcend the mode of goodness also and be situated in unalloyed goodness, unaffected by any of the qualities of material nature. This stage of transcendental qualification is called Shuddha Sattva or Vasudev, and in this stage the science of God can be realized. As the Lord is not affected by the modes of material nature, so a pure devotee of the Lord is also not affected by the modes of nature. That is the primary qualification for being one with the Lord. A person who is able to attain this transcendental qualification is called Jivan Mukta, or liberated, even though he is apparently in a material condition. This liberation is achieved by one who constantly engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.187 it is said, Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikila shrapya vasthasu jivan mukta sa uchyate. Anyone who, by his actions, mind and words, lives only for the transcendental loving service of the Lord is certainly a liberated soul, even though he may appear to be in a condition of material existence. Uddhava was in such a transcendental position, and thus he was selected to be the factual representative of the Lord in his bodily absence from the vision of the world. Such a devotee of the Lord is never affected by material strength, intelligence, or even renunciation. Such a devotee of the Lord can withstand all onslaughts of material nature, and therefore he is known as Goswami. Only such Goswamis can penetrate the mysteries of the Lord's transcendental loving relationships. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So, translation. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way because he is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he may remain in this world in order to disseminate specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Right. So the qualification Krishna is giving here of Uddhava is that he is never affected by the modes of material nature. And Prabhupada gives this verse from Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in the purport, Iya Yasya Haridasya, that one who is always engaged in the service of the Lord. So one who has his only interest is the service of the Lord, service of Krishna. So we can ask then, why is it that this is the only qualification? Why is it that someone who is affected by the modes of material nature, why are they disqualified then? You can put the proposition in the opposite way. And it comes down to, we can understand in one way of looking at this, is that Uddhava had his only interest was the Lord. It comes down to interest. His only interest was the service of the Lord. As this verse is saying, his mind, his words, his body, his only interest was serving the Lord. And we can see that in the material world, and of course we can understand a lot about the spiritual world by understanding the dynamics and the relationships and the workings and the functioning of the material world. Prabhupada said that first, for Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Shishite. That Krishna is the supreme perfect whole. He is the complete whole. But when he makes something, that thing is also complete and whole in itself. And also from Brahma Sutra we have what is that verse? The first verse? Atata Brahmajigasa, and then? No, that's the Bhagavatam. Now the second verse of Brahma Sutra, from him everything comes. What's that Sanskrit verse? Huh? No, that's Anadi Adi Govinda, that's Brahma Samhita. Huh? Yes, thank you. Jammadhyasya yataha, right? Everything is coming from Krishna. So Prabhupada uses this to Jammadhyasya yataha. Many times Srila Prabhupada is explaining this point that we can understand something of the transcendental reality and the transcendental personality of Godhead and how he interacts, how the dynamics of the spiritual world are going on by understanding this. Because he also gives the example, if we want to understand God, we can also understand our own soul, but in the sense that our soul is very minute. We're all very minute, and this entire material creation is filled with unlimited minute souls, right? But the personality of Godhead is complete, He's everything. So in the same way that a drop of ocean water has the same qualities of the ocean, right? We can understand the ocean. If we taste one drop of water, what does it taste like? From the ocean? Salty. Tastes salty. So we can understand. If you just get one drop of ocean water and you taste that, you can understand. Oh, okay. That if I go swimming in the whole ocean, it'll be salty, right? We can understand the whole thing. But at the same time, the ocean has so many other things that drop doesn't have, right? It has the big whales, the big sharks, the fish. It has so many things, the waves, everything it has. So, what's that?
Coral, it has coral.
Oh, it has coral also, exactly. So many things. So many things that the ocean has that drop doesn't have. So in the same way, we can understand God by understanding ourselves, but we have to understand that we are just a drop of God. We are just a drop of, and He has unlimited qualities, just like the coral, and so many things are in the ocean. But He has so many things that we don't have. But at the same time, we can understand. All right? So, Janmadhyasya yataha. So we can understand what is something about Krishna by understanding the spiritual world. We can understand something of the spiritual world by understanding the material world. Right? Prabhupada gave this many different examples. Right? So an example we can look at here, we're talking about interest, is that in the material world, right, in the general world, they have the concept of conflict of interest. Right? Who's heard of this concept? Conflict of interest. We have a lawyer here. He's very expert in this concept. Hopefully not to have this concept. So conflict of interest is there, right? So we know that if someone is in a position where they're giving judgments and giving resources, so if somebody is a judge and they're giving judgments on people's life, if someone is a politician or leader and they're allocating resources in society, then we have this concept that they can't have a conflict of interest. Right? So their interest, their own personal interest, right, cannot be connected to the administration of justice or the administration of the resources of the state. It's conflict of interest, right? So the reason is because they cannot be impartial. They cannot be objective, right? They'll have a subjective view, right? They won't be able to speak the truth, right? They're, this company is applying for this development opportunity, they'll earn lots of money. And if in their mind they're thinking, yes, therefore my shares in this company will go up, very good, then they can't actually look at it that maybe there's another company doing a better job, right? That will be better for the public interest, for everybody. They can't see like that, right? So in the same way, this is the reason that Krishna is one way we can understand. That Krishna is saying that the qualification of Uddhava is that he has no conflict of interest, right? He has no conflict of interest because his only interest is the service of the Lord, what is pleasing to the Lord, right? So, of course, there is, confirm, thank you. So, there is many, there's an emotional reaction, right? There's an emotional reaction, or there's a reaction on the level of injustice, right? That we have when someone who's meant to be impartial isn't. You know, if there's a policeman who's meant to be protecting people, but he doesn't, he exploits the people or harms the people even, right? If there's a politician that is meant to be doing something and does it, what to speak of, for religious leaders are meant to be giving pure knowledge, and they're not, they're actually exploiting the people. There's a visceral reaction that people have on the level of injustice, and this is a sort of natural reaction to this fact that those people are meant to be doing that. They're meant to be impartial. They're meant to be helping, and they're actually being held up on a position, right? The judge. Where is the judge in the court? He's sitting down there in the thing. He's always up, right? Or she's always up. They're up there. Oh, the judge. When the judge walks in, what does everyone has to do? They bow down, right? Or they stand up if they're sitting, right? His Honor, Her Excellency, all rise. They still do that. All rise. Sometimes it's gradually going up. But they're given that position, and people are giving the respect to them on the basis that they can be impartially, just simply doing what is right for the people. And if they're seen to be not, then there's a very strong, people have, all of us, everyone, we have very strong reaction to that. Wow, it's very shocking. If a criminal, he's been in jail 5-6 times, and then he comes out and you find out, oh, he's gone and stolen from the shop, think, nobody likes it, but the same reaction isn't there, right? But if someone is up on a thing, there's that element of shame in Jyotish. If you study a little bit Jyotish, then when you have the sun, and when a planet is afflicted very close to the sun, then this element comes in, that they're associated with something higher, but then they're seen to be there. They have some affliction. Then there's that feeling of shame, and other people feel that also. So this is the emotional reaction, you might say, or the reaction that we have on the human level of our emotions and injustice and so forth. And at the same time, looking at it from a sort of philosophical understanding, we can see that this is really the sort of root of that problem, or root of that is that there's a conflict of interest, right? There's a conflict of interest that this person is meant to be giving pure spiritual knowledge. He's only meant to be speaking from scripture, but at the same time they have some conflict of interest. And that conflict of interest is that they're still attached to the modes of material nature, right? What does that mean? It means that somebody can say, so even in a spiritual sense, somebody can say, oh, this is the Shastra, but at the same time I'm kind of attached to doing devotional service like this, so you should do devotional service, but you should do it like this. So like how I like to do it. You should do it like this way, right? And we can see, Hari Swarupa's here, he had direct perception, right? Direct service to a pure devotee who didn't have anything like that, right? And is it one, amazing thing that Srila Prabhupada manifested in this world, that everything he did, that he didn't do anything with any tiny tinge, he had no interest in the material world, right? Because he had no interest, he had no conflict of interest, right? He had nothing to gain in this material world, right? So we worship Srila Prabhupada not because of that, but that's one reason, right? We're worshipping Prabhupada because he had no interest in this world, he was able to completely do whatever was needed for Krishna service without any separate, attachment of his own, right? And therefore, we as followers of Srila Prabhupada, we're obviously, not on that level at all, right? But at the same time, if we faithfully repeat what Srila Prabhupada has given, if we repeat the Shastra, then our words, and our life gradually becomes molded in such a way that we also have no separate interest to Krishna consciousness. And, the process may seem impossible. How do we go from that to that? How can we go from where we are, so we have conflict of interest, right? We want to serve Krishna at the same time. As Prabhupada said, unalloyed devotional service. So we're like an alloy. We have an alloy, right? Mishra, mixed. So how do we go from that to that? Rupa Goswami has given that verse, right? Anasakta shibisha nyataham upayunjita nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam varagyam uchate, right? That by taking whatever the activities, whatever skills, whatever ability we have, we use that for Krishna's service in a spirit of detachment, right? Not a spirit of attachment, not that I want to do this and no matter what I'll do this. No, I have some skill, let me try this for Krishna. And it's not working out this way, that's okay, I'll do it this way. Somehow or another I'll serve Krishna a different way, or I'll do that but in a different way, I'll take some guidance from someone. Like that. Anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayunjita nirvanda Krishna sambandhe. Connected to Krishna, talking to the devotees, talking to the Guru, understanding the Shastra. Yuktam Varagyam Uchate. It's called Yuktam Varagyam. Yuktam means joining, right? Joined. Yukta, the root of Yuj, the root of yoga and all these things. So this is, Rupa Goswami's given this is the process, and how to take the activities of life and connect them. If we want to have family, I want to have children and family, that's okay. Then we look after, we encourage, we help our husband, we help our wife to be Krishna conscious. Yuktam Varagyam Uchate. We help our children to become Krishna conscious. Take our children to the temple, have kirtan, talks about philosophy, reading shastras in the household, keep the house in a sattvic situation, right? So we engage those things, right? We want to make money, we want to have some success for a young man or woman. Then, okay, we do that, but we engage that in Krishna service. We give nice donation to the temple, or we help to create some facility for devotees. Shivananda Sain, he was very wealthy, he created so much facility. He would take the devotees to Puri every year, look after their needs. So like this, Rupa Goswami is saying this is a higher level of renunciation. He says it's actually a higher level. The Buddhist or the impersonal idea of renunciation, that we just give up the desires and no, we don't do that. That's actually, it's more selfish, right? Because it's keeping, yes, I have my spiritual path, but then my desires, they're mine. I'm keeping them for myself. I'm not going to, no, but the bhakti, the glory and the wonder of bhakti, the mystical technology of bhakti is that those desires can be engaged, right? There's no such thing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that there's no such thing, the idea of liberation and renunciation. Krishna said to Arjuna in the beginning of Gita, right? He said all these things in the first chapter, and Arjuna's response was, all right, I'm just going to give up. It's too hard. I'm going to go to the forest and become a sage. And Krishna laughed and said, you can't become a sage. You're a warrior. You're a Kshatriya. You have the ability to rule over thousands of people and protect so many millions of people and uphold Dharma. He said, you will do that no matter what. So if you're going to do it no matter what, might as well do it for me, Krishna said. And then you'll get spiritual benefit as well, right? So we're all in the same position that we can't change our nature. We can't change our nature that we're born with in this lifetime. It is given. But whatever that is, we can engage that in Krishna service, right? We can engage in Krishna service, and that's the process of coming to this point of having no separate interest, becoming no conflict of interest. This is the process, whatever it is, however we can engage. In Srimad Bhagavatam, seed slokas, the last one, the last seed sloka, right in the very, very end, says that one should look for the supreme truth directly and indirectly. Directly and indirectly. Prabhupada says, what is this indirectly? It's all of these supporting things of the varnashram, of just human society. That is indirect service to Krishna, right? Being a good Sudra, being a good Vaishya, a Brahmana, having no conflict of interest in the just a human being sense, being a good human, you might say, not being sinful. That is actually indirect service to Krishna. In the sense of Krishna's external body is the social body. The human society is the universal form. The Brahmanas are the head, Kshatris are the arm, Vaishyas are the belly, Shudras are the legs. Whatever position, every society is arranged like that. Whether they call it Varnashram or not, doesn't matter. But it's still there. There's intellectual class, management class, productive class, and then the worker class. Everything. So doing those duties is an indirect service to the external body of the Lord. But if one just does that, then one just stays, right? There's no ultimate solution, right? Krishna says, the modes of nature are always in competition, right? Sometimes mode of goodness, so you might come up to the level of Brahmana, but then you'll come back down to the level of a Sudra or worse. You gradually go around. But by doing the direct and the indirect together, then the ultimate goal can be achieved, right? So as devotees, we do this indirect. We try to have a proper situation of our life. We try to live piously. Like Thakur said, have our income is earned in a pious way. Our activities are in goodness. This is our indirect situation. This is the support of the bhakti. But at the same time, we're always trying to increase the direct more and more and more. Right? If we're in the temple, we're in brahmachari life, then these things they're not. We don't go so far into that. It's not necessary, right? It's more the direct. It's all about the direct. But still, the indirect is there. You know, take bath in the morning. We, interact nicely with other devotees, develop our service mood. Living in sattva, the way that we eat, the way we everything, right? It's still there, but it's not necessary to be so much. But every situation, we're increasing that direct, right? So this is the process. We may think, how can I come from where I am to where Uddhava and Srila Prabhupada are when they have no separate interest and I have so many interests? We shouldn't get depressed. We shouldn't get worried. Oh no, how can I? We shouldn't meditate on our anattas, right? We should consider our anattas. They are there. How can we, all right, and now how can we deal with them? How can we go forward and deal with those anattas? We shouldn't meditate on the mode of ignorance. Sit around, I've got this fault and that fault and that, da. We're supposed to be chanting Hare Krishna, not chanting Tamagun, Rajagun, Tamagun, Rajagun, right? So we shouldn't become obsessed. No, we should see whatever, and we see actually our attachment is the same as our skill. Our talent means our attachment. It's the same thing, right? If you look at somebody's karma, what they're good at, that's their attachment. It's the same thing. Have some ability in that area. We should see what is the ability I have in the material world. Let me do that for Krishna. Let me see. Yuktam Varagyam. How can I connect that to Krishna? How can I connect that to Krishna? How can I connect it? During the day, we're doing something, we have da-da-da. How am I connecting this to Krishna? All right, this is just totally mundane. Oh, no, that's all right. I'm earning $1,000 this week, and I'm going to give $100 to the temple. So that this is connected, right? Oh, this is mundane. Well, bathing my child. No, that's all right. This is connected. I'm bringing this child into Krishna consciousness, right? I'm giving this soul an opportunity to do devotional service, right? So all the time we're thinking, How can I connect this? How is this connected to the direct service of Krishna, right? This is the process, right, of how to come to that level of no conflict of interest, is to gradually contemplate through our life, how can I do this for the interest of Krishna, for Krishna's interest, the pure devotee's interest, the acharya's interest. How can I do this for their interest? And then the mind goes, oh, what about your interest? Don't forget about you, don't forget about me, and what about your false ego as well? And we go, that's okay, that's all right. I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to develop no conflict of interest. Because that's a position of love, that's a position of happiness, right? You know? And that's a position that we're trying to attain. So I think I'll stop there. I'll leave some time for classes. Classes. Class? Yeah, we'll have some more classes. Leave some time for questions. I think Hariswara Prabhu will confirm. I think if you look in the recordings, the average class time of Prabhupada was about 38 minutes. Correct? Something like that?
Depended where he was.
Depended where he was, yeah.
In the West, usually up to half an hour.
Half an hour, yeah, even less, right? It took longer when people have the attention span to listen. Yeah, thank you. Just before we take, do you have anything to add, Hariswara Prabhu, to what we discussed? We have some time, would you like to? No? Okay. All right, is there any question then from devotees? Yes, Prabhu. One sec, sorry. Prabhu at the back. Okay, that's... Either, that's fine. We'll come to you, Sadi. Keep the question.
Nice class, Prabhu, thanks. I was just wondering, in regards to anartas, how valid are like self-help books like, you know, Habits of Successful People, Emotional Intelligence, so forth, or is it just that all those maladies or things, they're just tamaguna, rajaguna, and we should just read the Shastra, or...
Well, what are those? What is Tamagun and Rajagun? Is it a person or is it a mechanism?
It's an energy, right?
Yeah, it's a subtle body, right? Is it? So Krishna says in Gita, right? Bhumi apanalova yu kamano buddhyevacha ahankara iti me brina prakriti rastada, right? He lists all those 8 material energies, right? Up to false ego, right? So all these things are within that, right? And then he says, apariyamitastvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayidam daryate jagat. Above all these material things, right up to false ego. So starting with earth, water, fire, air, ether, akash, you know, mind, intelligence, false ego, that's all material. It's as material as our car. It's as material as the doorknob on the front of our house. Understand? Above all that is the soul. You see? So when we're dealing with Tamagut, we're dealing with an impersonal energy. It's not a person. It's a material thing, right? So if we have something wrong with our car, do we read Srimad Bhagavatam? Why not?
Yeah, because I mean, but at the same time, it seems like...
No, answer the question, please. No, we don't. But why not?
But when this...
No, why not? Yeah, that's okay.
It doesn't have directly, but it seems that some swamis and advanced people can see these things in the Bhagavatam, but I don't see them. They can see the emotional guidance and what have you in the Bhagavatam as far as improving yourself. Yeah. But
that's okay. So, but why don't we read Bhagavatam if our carburetor's blocked? I mean, we always read Bhagavatam. But what do we do if a carburetor's not working or the battery's broken? What do we do?
Well, we go to someone who's a mechanic or read something about it.
Yeah. So we go to a mechanic, right? And what determines whether that going to the mechanic and fixing our car, what determines whether that's spiritual or not? What determines that?
Yeah, I guess it's
the mechanic we go to, the book we read.
The ultimate purpose of what you're using the car for.
What we're using the car for. Exactly. So in the same way, whatever we're using materially up to false ego, If we're using that for Krishna's service, then it's spiritual. And if we're not using it for Krishna's service, it's not spiritual. That's just the definition given by Rupa Goswami.
So dedicating...
Anyavilasita shunyam, jnana karmadi anavritam, anukulyena krishna anushilanam, bhakti uttama. The definition of bhakti means doing something doing it for Krishna's interest.
So it is bona fide to allocate some time.
It's bona fide to do everything for the development of our Krishna consciousness. And Bhagavatam, if you want to meditate on this point a little more, read that last sloka of the seed sloka of Bhagavatam, where it starts with everything, and then you have to search for the Supreme, you have to understand everything, and then right at the end it says you also have to do it directly and indirectly. If you don't do the indirectly, the thing is you stay connected to the modes of material nature. Understand? You can chant like we sing in the morning. You can chant for millions of lifetimes, but if you're doing it with offense, you'll stay here. It doesn't help. You still stay connected to the material world. Another really important verse in this is Ishopanishad verse 11, right? Which distinguishes this point of vidyams cha avidyams chayat, right? The vidya is knowledge of spirit, amrita, Krishna consciousness, the Hare Krishna mantra, all of these direct connections, right? And the avidya is knowledge of the material world, right? He says avidya, but he's talking about apara vidya, like just knowledge of how the world works. And in the second and third line of that sloka, right, Ishopanishad, verse 11, he says that the knowledge of vidya gets you into the spiritual world. The knowledge of vidya, amrita mashnute, it gives you amrita, it gives you into the eternal reality, it enters you into that. Knowledge of vidya, spiritual knowledge. So chanting Hare Krishna directly, thinking about Krishna's pastimes, all these things, right? Then he says, knowledge of avidya, knowledge of aparavidya, lets you get free from the modes of material nature. It frees you from repeated birth and death, right? So if we only do, and you can see this is also Bhagavatam seed sloka for direct and indirect, right? The direct is chanting Hare Krishna, all those things, and then the indirect, Prabhupada says in the purport, he just encapsulates it in a sentence basically. Most of the purport is talking about how the direct is the important, because Prabhupada, that's what he's giving us. There's so much direct is there. Like I said, there's millions of books on indirect, of how to interact with human society. But Prabhupada gives the understanding, he says indirect means varnashram, which is one word, but it just means, the social organization of Vedic society, or how to organize a society such that Vedasya savam ahameva vedyo, right? That it's a way to know Krishna, right? So the indirect, the understanding of the material world, which you get from, what is the book? How to Win Friends? No, what was it? All of those books, right? Whatever. There's insight there. And even directly you can see most of those people are coming from a faith-based thing. They're mostly Christian, they have a faith in God, and they're giving these things, okay? So if you understand it, of what it is, right, and use it for your direct service, it's just like going to the guy to fix your car, something like that, right? Yeah. But if you forget it and you think, these Hare Krishnas, they said chanting Hare Krishna, my life will be perfect. Now my car's broken. Now I have to go to the mechanic. I've lost my faith in these people. What's the use? Then you didn't understand. Direct and indirect. But we have to be careful. And the thing is, if we see in this way, Shastra Chakshu, if we see in that way, we'll get that understanding you're talking about. If we see in the way that Krishna consciousness is only this, and that's all Maya, we're doing the opposite of what Rupa Goswami is telling us to do. Yuktam varagam, yukta, we're ayukta. We're cutting off our activities and our skills and our everything in the material world. We're cutting that off from Krishna consciousness. Rupa Goswami says, try to connect it. And we're actively saying, this is Krishna consciousness and that's all mine. We have to see, of course, there is mine. That's the thing. We have to understand that, not say, everything is Krishna, let me embrace the tiger. But if you start to see in that way, right, with whatever the books, whatever you're talking about, to help you to situate the mind peacefully, you'll see that everywhere here also. You're saying, oh, how come the people see that? I don't see it. But you'll see it. It's in every single thing. It's in every word. Because Om Paramara Paramidam. It's a complete thing. It's a complete whole. So Krishna is a complete whole, but this material world is a complete whole too. And you'll see it. And the thing is, in bhakti, right? Just like, the six Goswamis never wrote books about Ayurveda and Jyotish and all of these other indirect things, because they're focusing on the bhakti. Because in Vedic culture, there's millions of books like that, and there's millions of gurus you can go to learn about Ayurveda or, psychology or whatever you want to learn about. That's all there. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, there's no lack in this material world except for God consciousness. So the Bhakti Acharyas have come to give us God consciousness. But they, if you look at him, Bhaktisiddhanta, he studied Jyotish for some time, the Vedic psychological science. So they're not coming in a vacuum, right? And just saying, oh, just do this and then just live like something rather animal or something. No, they're assuming that you do that work yourself. You learn how to live as a human being, right? That work you do. And there's a million gurus and a million books, Western, Eastern, everything, right? But they're giving the bhakti. They're giving that, right? They're giving that. But even within that, right? Many times Srila Prabhupada's talking in his purport about Vedic culture, about Varnashram, about how the Brahmanas would be respected, how there's so much even in Prabhupada's books is there, and we shouldn't feel bad if we get some ideas from these books if we see it in the right way, but it's not a replacement, because the ultimate goal is not there. Sadhu, Sarvadas, what is your question?
I was just going to say that in the court, it's really offensive if you don't call the judge honor or something.
Yeah. Very good. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he says a lot of different things that are humility, right? This is being humble, being honorable, being humble. Sorry, I'm saying the question wrong. He says a lot of things that are knowledge, right? And what's the first thing he says that is knowledge? He says there's all this ignorance and different things, but he says these things are knowledge. What's the first item of knowledge? Is it going to university? Is it reading so many books? No? What's the very first thing Krishna gives?
Submission.
Amanitva. Yes, submission, humility, right? Because if you can't give respect, right? Tadvidi pranipatana pariprashanena sevya. If you can't give respect, if you can't think, oh, maybe I don't know everything. Wow. Interesting concept for some of us. Maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I'm not. Wow, maybe there's something this person I've met can teach me. Wow. Right? How can we learn anything if we think that we know everything?
How do you learn stuff?
You can't. How do you learn stuff if you think you know everything? Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's literally impossible.
It's impossible, isn't it? Because somebody says something.
You think there's nothing more to learn.
Exactly. But many of us people, we have this thing in the material world. It's a natural thing. So Krishna says, being humble and thinking, what can I learn? What can I learn from these people? Not that, this guy, this girl, What does she know? Oh, my understanding is so much higher than them. Oh, whatever. We're cutting ourselves off. We're literally just cutting ourselves off. But what is it? One of the founding fathers of America, I think he said, one thing I've learned is that every man is my equal in the sense that I can learn something from them. Was it one of the founding fathers of the USA? Said like that. So, you know, if Krishna's giving us amani tvam, right? Very first step is, you know, I don't know everything. I'm ready to learn. What can I learn from here? That humility is the first item of knowledge. Without that, not very much knowledge can come. Yeah. Prabhu had a question. Any of the ladies have a question? Or?
They can hold the microphone.
Hopefully
Is it that?
Hopefully it doesn't come across as complicated as I've made it in my head, but my question is about the approach to Krishna consciousness and bhakti. You've talked about how the aim, you know, Uddhava did not have that conflict, i.e. he didn't have that interest in material nature. Prabhupada didn't have that interest. But of course, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we have so many things that we are conflicted by. We have so many interests, so many different inflictions, anarthas, as you said. So in terms of approaching Krishna consciousness and our way in which we live in Krishna consciousness, you know, you have situations perhaps where we dive into that pool, you know, head deep, and we might find ourselves in a situation where because we haven't developed that taste, that we're not enjoying Krishna consciousness, and it becomes quite rusty and dry, and we see many people, you know, end up leaving because they're not getting that enjoyment that they were getting previously from material nature. They're not finding it in Krishna. And on the other side, you have, you know, the slow and steady approach, dipping your toes in the water and going in slowly, but then you might not be taking in everything. You might be losing out. So in terms of approaching Krishna consciousness on our different levels, can you say some things that might assist?
Is it a dichotomy between sort of like joining the ashram and just completely giving up everything, or sort of staying back and keeping our life going and just gently adding Krishna? Is that the question?
Yeah, like, you know, is it permissible to gently add in Krishna? Like, should we, if we find ourselves in a situation where, you know, we are totally Krishna conscious, which we all want to be, but we're finding ourselves not really enjoying, what's some of the things that we can kind of do to kind of get out of that headspace?
The main, you know, I mean, at the heart of it is offences to devotees, is the main thing that kills our taste. And it's very difficult because we're conditioned souls and we're arrogant and we think we know everything, and therefore we naturally are offensive. Unfortunately, that's why we're here. Otherwise we'd be in Goloka. So, you know, Lord Chaitanya gives, you know, I mean, Krishna's Kaviraj gives the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is instructions to Rupa Goswami, instructions to Sanatana Goswami are in there. The whole process of bhakti is there, and Krishna gives the whole Bhagavad Gita. And in there he says that this knowledge can never be lost. You can never, you know, go backwards. Once you get it, you can never lose it. But there's a very important part of Chaitanya Charitamrita which Lord Chaitanya explains, that the offense, the activity of offending Vaishnavas, especially, you know, more advanced Vaishnavas, but any Vaishnava, is that like an elephant in the garden, you know, a cow or something that may come and trample the garden, then it can grow up. But the mad elephant offense of offending devotees actually pulls up the bhakti from the roots. And if the thing is that we can never lose our advancement in Krishna consciousness, it's impossible, except for making offenses to devotees. There's no other way. So this is why any kind of a forum, whether it's digital or not digital or real or unreal or whatever, anything where you're hearing offenses to devotees is the most toxic thing to devotional service, And there appears to be some new shastra, and that I'm not aware of, but it must have been, there's some new shastra given that you can actually make spiritual advancement by finding all the faults in devotees and posting them on the internet. And that is actually a process of advancing in spiritual life. But I haven't seen that shastra, but it appears by the faith and the trust and the belief that people have in this process, I'm thinking there must be a shastra somewhere that explains that. I just haven't found it yet. So, as far as losing taste, what was the pastime in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes? I think when Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy, he went running. He was at Alalanath, and he went running into the ocean, thinking it was the Yamuna. And he went running into the ocean, and the devotees didn't find him. He ran so fast they couldn't find him. But then they found a fisherman, and the fisherman was shaking and crying uncontrollably, and he was saying, "Hari, Hari, Hari." And they're saying, what happened? "Oh, I pulled up this big fish. It was a huge, big thing, and I don't know what's happened. And I touched him, and as soon as I touched him, I'm just going, Hari, 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 and I'm shaking, I'm crying, and all of these things are happening." And Sri Damodar came to him and said, "Do you want this to stop?" He said, "Yes, I want this to stop." "Oh, you just go and offend that devotee there. Just go and tell him, 'Hey, you're a blah, blah, blah.' And then it'll stop." That's it. How much are we... Every time we chant, we're getting more taste. And every time we offend devotees, we're losing our taste. So we just have to be very careful not to offend devotees or hear about offending devotees. And it doesn't really matter if we're immersed whole body or toe or whatever, because the fact is, Rupa Goswami is saying, engage whatever you have in Krishna consciousness. So if what you have is being brought up nicely in a sattvic environment where this kind of knowledge and practice is natural to you, and then you have the ability, you've already trained to have an occupation where you can get some remuneration and maintain your family and things like that. You have all that. Rupa Goswami said, whatever you have that. Engage that in Krishna service. He doesn't say, whatever you have, engage in Krishna service, but then throw it all away and do something else because whatever. It's just not the process. So the thing is, what are you jumping in full or putting your toes in the water? What is it? Is it the body? Is it the mind? Is it the occupation? No, it's your heart. It's a change of heart. Like we said, Shivananda Sain was a very rich devotee, and of course that it can't be tricked. You can't trick Krishna and say, "Yeah, Krishna, I'm doing everything for you," but actually then you're just going, just doing everything for your mind and senses. But at the same time, that it's not that one is jumping in and one is not jumping in devotionally, bhakti-wise, But this is another Buddhist Mayavadi kind of concept. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that this idea of liberation, it's illusion. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. That's not our process. He said the concept of liberation, that I'm free from I'm liberated now, I'm the same as God, that's not our process. He said that liberation is a material concept because it happens in material time. They say, "Oh, I'm conditioned, then I take sannyas, and then now I'm liberated. Om Narayana, Om Narayana, he says Narayana to me, I say Narayana to him, now I'm liberated." But Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, that happened in material time, that idea of liberation. That's a material concept, it's relative. It's relative to the material world. Just like darkness is relative to light. If there's no light, there's no concept of darkness. So this idea of I'm giving up everything, I'm not giving up, I'm whatever, that's not our process. If someone is completely engaged in a dharmic activity and they don't have, like in my case, for example, I was brought up complete with no training in Vedic culture, not even any theistic training, and I'm like, physically and mentally, I joined the ashram. I stayed there for 5 years. I didn't leave, because that was conducive to my Krishna consciousness. But if I was born into it, where how to act sattvically was just part of life, then that's not necessary. And it gets into, obviously, Varna and things. Many people born in India, but then they become brahmacharis. So that's also there. If that's their dharma, their varna, to be a brahmachari, to be a brahmana, then they may just stay in the ashram. So, but the point is, where's the conflict of interest? Where in your life is the conflict of interest? And then you have to see that. How can I engage that? That's all. But don't offend devotees. Just don't hear it. Don't hear it. It's not. There's no shastra discovered yet that by getting a lot of likes and having people, laugh at what you say and think, wow, it's so awesome. In the what do they call it? The echo chamber of social media. There's no shastra that says that is a process of advancing in spiritual life. It isn't. And if you're wondering why you don't have taste for chanting Hare Krishna, look no further. That's where it is for all of us. We just have to. And also, if you're talking about taste, I have to finish now. Sorry, it's getting late. But just quickly, taste for prashana. And I'll just give a quick story. Once I was driving with Kanama Swami many years ago, and I was driving to the airport, I think, and I was chanting. I was managing the temple at the time, so I was like, had so many different activities and things. And I was chanting on my beats, driving, And I think Prabhupada said once to Mukunda Maharaj or someone, oh, that's a good use of time, And he said, oh, you're chanting while you're driving? And I think I quoted that to Kanama Swami. He came back with a very good comeback. He said, that's okay, but I wouldn't want to rely on those rounds. I don't want to rely on those rounds. And my experience since is that you might have a day, right? Say you've got a case or a client or whatever, and you can't, like you chanted 6 rounds in the morning, you've got 10 rounds to chant. So you've got your clicker, right? And you're driving to work and you're chanting on the clicker 4 rounds there and 6 rounds on the way back you're chanting. They're not the greatest rounds, but you got your 16 rounds done. Okay. Now, the next day you don't have that, right? The next day you go, all right, I'm going to sit down in front of my deities and I'm going to chant good solid, 10, 12 rounds, whatever. You keep going back to that place of very attentive chanting. You don't say, oh yeah, I did that and I did my 16. Oh, you know what, I might just do that tomorrow too. I was chanting around the shopping centre, something like that, No, you have to keep coming back to attentive chanting, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur also said the mother of all offences is inattentive chanting. So we may be sometimes not attentive, we're households, we're working, whatever, but when we have the chance, we keep coming back to just sitting and just chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So that's the other thing about taste. We have to keep coming back to that. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.